Welcome to American Stories with me, your host, Amman Hydri. This original HKIM series has been created to share with you journeys of people who have come to America, overcoming personal and professional challenges, and have made a successful life for them and their families. On this program, we will hear what they have experienced, learn how they have thrived, and what they have given back to the country and communities they live in and work in. I'm very excited to introduce my next guest today, Helge Liedtke. Helge, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much, Amman.
First of all, I'm very excited because you are my first guest who is originally from Europe. And I'm very excited to learn all about your journey and how you ended up here on the sea today. But before we learn more about you, talk to me a little bit about your childhood. Where were you born? What was your childhood like, and where were you raised?
Thank you, Amman. I was born in Germany, in the very center of, near Frankfurt in Hanau, and was the only child in my family. My father had a stroke on my 8th birthday, and from that moment on, I was only raised by my mother. The childhood was otherwise a normal Central European childhood with normal schooling. We didn't lack of anything. It was a very comfortable childhood.
I'm sorry that your father felt sick when you were young, but was that really a tough time with you? Because what I meant by tough time was in the guidance. I mean, was anyone to guide you during while you were growing up?
Well, I was certainly missing the male figure in my life, right? Yeah. Which has probably had some degree of influence on my character later on.
Yep.
But it became a normal, right? So as I will share later, I have a challenge now with my daughter as well, and certain things are just part of life as they are defined. Yeah. You take it as it comes.
How was it growing up in Germany? It is a developed country, and it's probably one of the top countries in Europe right now. But how was it living in Germany?
The lifestyle is not that much different than it is here too. There's different focuses on While we focus on football here, we focus on soccer in Germany, but other than that, life almost works the same way. Same technology, same industry. Difference in culture, difference in preferences within the culture, and how to express them and behaviors, but that is easily adjusted from one country to another.
Can you share something interesting while you were growing up as a child or as a young adult in Germany?
Well, something that's specific to my hometown or the area where I lived in. I played the accordion, and I still do. And I grew up learning the accordion. I had students who learned how to play the accordion from me. I played in an accordion orchestra, so 50, 60 people playing the accordion. Wow. We even participated in international championships in Innsbruck, Austria, a couple of times. So that was a unique thing that I don't find anywhere on this side of the continent.
Very interesting, very interesting. So going back, in your childhood, who would you say was probably the most influential person while you were growing up in Germany?
Well, since my father's onset of disease on my 8th birthday, of course, we were a two-individual household, my mother and myself. So, of course, I had a great influence from my mother. But my godfather probably was the other influential figure that I was leaning on very much. So I took a lot of input from him.
How much did that person contribute to your success in Germany?
Well, my godfather gave me a lot of confidence. My godfather gave me a trusted source I could always default back on. So I would think he helped build my character, and that is essential for any success.
Wow, yeah, absolutely. So that is your early childhood in Germany, and you want to talk a little bit about your education in Germany, and how was it learning everything in your education?
Now that I'm also seeing my children go through the educational system in the United States, I found that the German educational system that I went through was to some degree more structured, to some degree more streamlined, less flexibility, but very structured. So high school, college, undergraduate studies, and then graduate studies was neatly following each other. And I always loved going to school. Was something I never had an issue with. I was always looking for the new information, for something new to learn. So I liked the system as it was. And now I'm trying to implement that same type of structure in my children's lives.
Wow. And that is definitely very important. In Germany, so you completed your high school and your college in Germany? And
also a graduate degree for an equivalent to a master's degree in the city of Frankfurt.
Okay, so it was, correct me if I'm wrong, like an MBA degree?
Yeah, it's an equivalent.
Equivalent.
Right. Today it would be an MBA. Back then it wasn't labeled as such.
Okay. Wow.
And then I also had the same degree completed in the United States at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth.
Wow. Okay. So after completing your education in Germany, you know, I'm sure there were a lot of opportunities over there, but what actually prompted you to decide to come to America?
Well, in my first year in undergraduate studies, there was a program sponsored by Goldman Sachs in Frankfurt. It was called the Goldman Sachs Global Leaders Program. And one of my professors recommended me to participate due to the grades I had in his lecture. And until then, it had never crossed my mind to ever live outside the country or leave for an extended period of time. But I participated in this program, went to interviews in London, was selected for the final rounds. There would be almost 2 weeks spending in New York City. At that time, it was 2001. It was the summer before September 11. And we stayed at the World Trade Center Marriott Hotel and had an impressive time. So I came back from that experience and said, I want to go back. I want to go back no matter what. And that was the ignition for that. That later caused me to apply for exchange programs, which worked. So I had an exchange here at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, where I did my MBA program. And once that was complete, I also had a Fulbright scholarship, so I had to return to Germany for 2 years without the ability to return to the United States thereafter. But as soon as we were back, we had the instinct, and my wife came with me at the time on a separate program that we had coordinated to work together. We knew this was not just a one-time trip. We knew we had to come back, and probably even to come back for good.
Yeah. You had recently, and before I jump into your career here in the U.S., you know, there was you had shared a story about how you got your green card, and I guess there's a very funny story behind that. And I was just reading actually on the magazine too here that you landed yourself and your wife on a magazine cover over here too. So what is the story? I mean, talk to us a bit about the whole the background of the green card.
We raised some awareness because we literally shipped our green card when you in the container across the Atlantic Ocean when you absolutely don't want to do that. After the Fulbright program had ended and we had to wait the 2 years, and we were certain we would want to pursue a life in the United States, we applied for the green card lottery. So we each had a ticket, and it's a very rare chance to win that forever. But my wife's ticket won in the first round, so we were able to get the green card and immigrate. And then when we packed all our belongings, had it shipped with a container across the Atlantic Ocean, I made the mistake of not noticing that the the crew that packed everything had also packed all our travel documents, including the green card. So we arrived in Boston at the airport without official legal documents because they were following us in snail tempo on the Atlantic Ocean. So they wanted to send us back because we were lacking the required documents. But at the same time, if they had to, our documents would have arrived in Boston, and we would be back in Europe, and we would still not have a help to hold on it, because the key to the container we had, and no one else would have been able to open that.
How did that go?
So with a lot of begging and paying $500 each as a fee, they allowed us for temporary admission, and then we waited for the official documents to come.
Wow. And after how long did you eventually get your green card?
The green card back in our possession, it took about 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's very exciting. So you are here now in Boston, right? And from there, how did you start your journey in the U.S.?
When we did the first exchange year, when I studied at UMass Dartmouth, my wife already worked in Providence as an architect. And when we planned our immigration in 2007, we had already planned how we would like to start our life here. So my wife would go back to the same architect's office to work for. And I was planning to transition with my back then current European employer, Bearing Point, to transition to the Boston office. But that was the onset of the 2008 crisis, so my employer's Boston office would no longer continue, while the German arm of Bearing Point is still continuing today. So I had to just find a new orientation, so I went back to retail banking at that time. And that was my first home was Bank of America.
Right. And talking about your banking, I mean, you have put quite a few years in banking. Where did you start your career now as a banker?
Well, that was literally, I was 16 when I first jobbed at a bank at a credit union in Germany. I did a vocational training to become a banker, a licensed banker at a credit union in Germany. And then when I did my graduate studies, I worked for a series of banks, Dresdner, Commerce, Deutsche Bank, then brief engagement with Goldman Sachs. And I also worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers, moved to consulting, MSU Consulting. PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then Bearing Point for a few years. That's when I then transitioned back to the United States and re-entered the classic retail banking side. But the consulting was always financial services oriented, and that's also where I, in that area of time, I also wrote the one publication I ever came up with.
Yeah, right. So I was just about to pick it up, and so you do have a publication here, right? And
yes.
This is what is this all about? This.
So derived of my diploma thesis, together with my professor at the time, he proposed we form this thesis into an actual publication for the Credit and Capital magazine that was on the probability of default. So it's around rating models that the central bank system was using. So for some time it had validity.
Definitely, I'm sure. So during your career, right? I mean, definitely there's always challenges, but what were some of the challenges that you really faced initially during your career here in the United States?
Yeah, so the beginning was I had to start a little bit from the ground up again. I had already gained some ground in Europe in terms of career progression. And that was not so easily transferable to the system here in the United States. When I filed for applications, I interviewed and so forth, I had no local experience. Right? I had experience, but it was not something that was totally comparable to the equivalent here in the United States. So I found that the challenge was I had to come up with some proven local experience before I would gain the same trust as I had already gained in Europe.
Yeah, because you know, I've talked to a lot of people at immigrants who move here, and I think the number one barrier is the language. And in your case, it was definitely not the language, but I think you faced a little different challenges. But how did that? I mean, and eventually, how did you overcome those challenges? And do you still face it now in your career?
Well, the language never will be perfect, right? So that'll always add to some amusement every single day. But the initial challenge was, yes, to have a proven track record and experience in the local industry, and that you can just do by showing, right? By doing and by proving that you have. So it just takes some time to actually dive into that.
Yeah. So, you've given a good background about your education, your career, and I guess I can label you as a successful banker. But apart from that, you do serve on multiple nonprofit organizations. But most importantly, you are a co-founder of a very special organization, and I was very, very interested and even touched about that. But I'll probably just leave it to you to talk a little bit about the organization that you founded.
Sure. My wife is the founder of the organization, and I helped her setting that up. The idea came from a practical experience. We call the foundation Space to Thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, we were looking to establish spaces for all children of all abilities to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
It came from the background that our oldest daughter is born with a genetic disease, spinal muscular atrophy, SMA, type 2. And in the early years, we found already that activities for children with or without disabilities were very segregated.
Mm-hmm.
Her sister and her were not able to participate in the same activities by definition because they were just not allowed to, and vice versa. So my oldest daughter would participate in something, my youngest was not permitted because she didn't have the fitting disability, or vice versa.
Wow.
My oldest was not allowed to watch my sister or participate in her dance class because she could not walk.
Wow.
So we said we have to create something that allows all children to engage without barriers, without prejudice. And that's how the organization started. So we hold dance classes, we met weekly, we had a room provided by the United Methodist Church in Cumberland, and we have created events that children could participate. We had family following us from inside the state as well as outside. We have since expanded to create donations to schools and other entities for accessible play equipment. My wife has created a paper for the state on play equipment. Right now, during COVID, our girls have started a program called Sisters Reach Out, where we just create clips for the community of all enabled children to thrive in that environment, even virtually.
Yeah. I was recently on the website, and it's a great cause that you're doing. So thank you very much for starting something like this. And just there are a few other organizations that you are involved in, and just tell me a little bit about that too.
Well, there's VBOC, the Veterans Business Outreach Center, which helps veterans and their family members to start businesses, write business plans, and to find an orientation or just general consulting, which is tied in with the Center for Women in Enterprise in Boston, or the Seed Corporation. I'm incorporated to a local YMCA, participate in the Business Network International in Mansfield. We have meetings every Tuesday, noontime. Anyone's welcome. And these are the most activities I participate in these days.
And I usually ask the same question. I want to ask you the same question my guest is: why do you think it is important to give back to the community? I mean, you've come from somewhat an affluent country, and you're still here, and you're doing very well. But why do you think it is important to give back?
Well, it's also the bank I work for is a community bank by trade, and the same principle applies there. You are part of the community, and you can only be part of the community if you take and give back. Otherwise, the system just doesn't work. So it's a natural logic behavior to not only follow greed and the ability to take, but to acknowledge the fact that someone has given you the ability at one point by giving to you, and now it's time to pay back when you have the ability to do so.
Yeah. So one great thing about this nation is there's always opportunities for everyone, right? But it's a matter of identifying what the opportunities and how to pursue them. So in your opinion, and my question to you is, how difficult do you think it is to pursue opportunities for someone?
It's a matter of finding them, of course, and what is really important in that is finding a network or creating a network around yourself
Yep.
that is helping you in that task. We specifically found that when our daughter was diagnosed with SMA, that was a shock, of course, and it is not easy to, you have nothing at hand that you need at the hour zero. So you need a network around you that helps you guide that, and that's what we do these days too. We guide families in similar situations to find the resources and to help them in order to master these challenges and the task. So it's really important about your network, because alone you don't know where to begin.
Yeah, very good advice. Very good advice. And so, what would your advice be to someone young who's who's moved here or is starting his career over here? What would your advice be to that person?
Patience is one part, because you always think, oh, the American dream, you just have to come to America and there it is.
Yep.
That, of course, applies to no country in the world and to no economy. So you have to focus on your goals. You have to be persistent. You have to follow your dream. Don't give up. There will be challenges and obstacles that seem not surmountable, but persistence will get you there. And focus. Right? Focus and put the effort into it, and whatever effort you put into, you will be rewarded for.
When have you been most satisfied in your life living here in America?
Tied into the story why we had that urge to come here to begin with, we had that urge really internally, not much to explain. It was an instinct. We wanted to come back for no economic or distress reasons. And our daughter was able to be admitted to a clinical trial right here in Boston, which probably would not have been possible anywhere else, especially not in Europe, for many years to come at that time. So we literally found out through that there was a reason for us to be here, because otherwise our daughter would not have the life standard and the life quality she has right now. That alone makes an uncomparable difference in our lives, whether we had immigrated or not had immigrated.
And I think you answered actually my next question is, how different would your life be living in Germany today? But I agree with you. I mean, with the healthcare and I know a lot of people who have disabilities and all, but living in America, they've really overcome that compared to if they were in their own country. So I do agree with you on that. So let me learn a little bit about Mr. Helge himself. What are your hobbies? And I know you play a musical instrument, but what other hobbies do you have?
Oh, I like soccer. I like to watch soccer. My hometown team is Eintracht Frankfurt. Mm-hmm. But I'll play with my girls as well. Swimming. During COVID, I developed an appetite to run in the mornings, so that's my morning routine now, to go for a 3.5 mile run. And aside from that, music has always been an essential part of my life. I play the accordion, I played in an orchestra, and we try to do music at home. And these are probably the two cornerstones of my extracurricular activities. I like to ski too, so we'll do that in the wintertime.
Very interesting, very interesting. Languages. I know that I've heard the word multiple languages, but what language do you speak, just out of curiosity?
Well, I grew up solely speaking German and then English as first foreign language, dropped it though in school, and then continued with French, which took over in strength until my studies in the United States. But my wife was born in Poland, mm-hmm. and so right now in our household we teach our children all 3 languages. I teach them German with my wife, and my wife teaches them Polish, so I picked up some of that too. So our kids can, to some degree, fluently understand all 3 languages and are still in the process of actually also learning to speak them fluently. But all across Europe, you pick up a little bit here and there between Italian, Greek, and so forth. But English, French, Polish, German, that's the cornerstone of the language array, and then a little bit of everything around that.
I think that's quite a few languages that you speak, definitely. You know, I would, I wish I had more time to learn more and more about it, but you know, as I'm approaching the last couple of minutes, you know, given your successful life, both in Germany and here in the U.S., how would you describe yourself in one word and why?
If I had to narrow down to one word, I probably was determined, and I would say that because I've seen obstacles in life, and I learned that what brings me through those obstacles and is to continue to focus on the goal, and with persistence strive for it. So, and hence, that's probably the measure of reaching that goal is persistently following it without giving up on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I do wish you the best, you know, in your endeavors with the organization, with your family, and with your, you know, your career over here too. But unfortunately, I'll have to end the show right over here. But I hope that we can get, you know, get you on the show sometime later on and talk a little bit more. So officially, thank you very much for being on the show. And also thank you for watching our series. I hope you have enjoyed learning about Helge's journey, and to learn more about our show, and please visit our website. I will also love to hear your comments and reactions to our show, and my contact information is on that page. Until next time, for American Stories with Amman, I am Amman Hydri, and I wish you safe travels. God bless.